Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take mountains of research archival reports, psych studies, forgotten biographies, and we distill it all down. The crucial insights, just for you.
And today, we're really jumping into something fascinating.
Yes, it's like a historical detective story.
Yeah.
We're on a mission, really, to recover names, achievements, influence, things that were pushed out of the spotlight.
Whether that was intentional or, just the way things worked back then.
I want you to picture something with me. Imagine a huge museum, right? But there's this whole wing, potentially full of world-changing stuff, but it's behind these thick, dusty velvet ropes.
Okay.
And the portraits, they're labeled wife of or maybe helper.
Yeah.
Generic. The objects coded letters, inventions, resistance plans, almost totally unlabeled.
So a hidden history.
Exactly, that forgotten space. It's packed with the work of women who were systematically, erased from the official story. Our job today, pull back those curtains.
And the sources we're drawing on are incredibly broad.
They really are. Inventors, rulers, spies, entrepreneurs, rebels. We're trying to synthesize the history, the psychology, the sociology of how this erasure happened, and importantly, how we recover from it.
Which brings us to the big question, doesn't it? It's not just about listing names. Why did they vanish from the narrative in the first place?
Right.
And maybe more importantly, what does finding their names again do for us, for you today? How does it reshape what feels possible, especially if you're looking at fields where role models seem, scarce?
That recovery work feels essential. It's about the future as much as the past.
It really is.
Okay, let's start digging into this idea of erasure. It sounds almost accidental, doesn't it? Like a filing mistake.
Yeah, passive. But the research makes it pretty clear it was often systemic, built right into the way society was structured legally, educationally, culturally.
So not just accidental forgetting.
Not at all. What's really interesting is tracing how this institutional exclusion developed. It wasn't just random bias. For centuries, women's ability to hold public power, technical, political, economic, was tightly limited by specific legal frameworks.
And if the law itself defines what counts as public work, or who has legal agency.
And women are shut out of that definition, then the erasure becomes almost inevitable, doesn't it? It's baked in.
That idea of institutional gatekeeping seems key. We talk about property law, education, but can we get more specific, like coverture? That legal idea where a married woman's identity just sort of vanished into her husband's.
Coverture is a huge piece of this, especially in English common law systems. It was incredibly powerful and insidious.
How did it act as a filter exactly?
Well, think about it. If you legally can't make contracts, own property in your own name, or, and this is crucial, own the intellectual property from your own work.
How could you possibly get credit for an invention or be seen as a formal political player?
Precisely. Your knowledge, even if it was incredibly advanced, gets automatically labeled domestic, informal, maybe helping out, never technical, never academic.
So the very institutions creating the official record courts, patent offices, land registries, they just weren't set up to even see women acting independently.
Right. It was omission by statute. The law itself made them invisible in the records, even when they were right there doing the work.
That's powerful. So let's trace that. How does this evolve? From ancient historians downplaying queens to, say, 19th century patent clerks.
Let's walk through it. We can start way back in antiquity and the medieval period. We absolutely know powerful female rulers existed. Think of Zenobia of Palmyra, 3rd century.
Led resistance against Rome, right?
Yeah.
A major figure.
Absolutely brilliant commander, administrator. But what happens after Rome conquers Palmyra? The Roman chroniclers take over the story.
And the filtering begins.
Exactly. The sources show they downplay her strategic skill, her political power. They turn her military campaign into, what? A romantic drama or a warning about an ambitious woman getting out of line.
So it becomes less about her generalship.
And more about her supposed personal flaws or her exotic nature. It's a conscious rewrite to diminish female power.
Okay, fast forward a bit. Early modern period, 16th to 18th centuries. The erasure moves closer to home, into personal records.
Yes, this is where we see women in covert political roles agents, spies being intentionally left out. The source we looked at highlights Susan Hyde. Fascinating case.
What did she do?
She was a highly effective political agent during major English political turmoil, handling sensitive letters, managing intelligence networks, critical stuff.
But her family's records.
When her own family put together the histories, the diaries, the letter collections, the memoirs, her political work, often just cut out, gone.
Why?
Her male relatives, the ones controlling the memory, they focused on her domestic life. maybe her supposed fragility. They deliberately erased her public political agency. It's classic patriarchal editing right within the family.
Wow. And this tendency gets legally cemented by the industrial age 19th century, especially with patents. You mentioned that tiny number, less than 1% of early patents listing women.
That number is stark, isn't it? Less than 1%. It screams legal failure.
What drove it so low?
Two main things. Coverture was still a huge issue. Even if a woman invented something, she might not have the legal standing to file for the patent herself.
She'd need a man to file for her.
Often, yes. Or, if she did file, the patent review boards, overwhelmingly male, were deeply skeptical. Especially if the invention came out of a domestic context, they just didn't see it as real technology.
So women inventors were forced to file under a husband's or father's name.
Or they were just noted down as wife of the applicant, effectively wiping their name off their own innovation in the official records, guaranteed historical invisibility in the tech world.
And then, even into the 20th century, when women did step into huge public roles, their stories still got buried or twisted.
Think about the world wars. WWII, especially, opened up massive opportunities for women in really dangerous roles: espionage, resistance. Figures like Virginia Hall, Noor Inayat Khan.
But their stories weren't immediately celebrated.
Often not. Many were classified for decades, for security reasons. That's one filter. But even when stories came out, the filter shifted. If you couldn't legally block the credit, you could bury it in secrecy. Or you romanticize it, twist it into fiction. The public seemed to prefer the exciting, maybe tragic story of a beautiful spy over the complex reality of a skilled, strategic operative doing gritty, dangerous work. The historical editing just adapted its methods.
That timeline really drives it home. These weren't just accidental gaps, it was systemic filtering. So, okay, let's pivot. What's the cost of this? The psychological impact today? Why does it matter so much if you don't see people like you in the history books?
It matters profoundly. It ties directly into how we build our sense of self, our identity. Imagine you're entering a tough, specialized field, science, politics, tech, whatever, and the history you learn, the visible lineage, is almost entirely male. That absence sends a powerful structural message about who's supposed to belong there, and that cues up something called stereotype threat.
Explain that a bit more. How does a historical absence trigger a reaction now?
Okay, so if the dominant story, the one history tells, suggests your group, in this case, women, lacks a certain capacity, maybe technical skill or leadership, then just being a woman in that high-stakes environment makes you carry an extra burden. You're not just trying to do the job, you're also fighting the fear that you might confirm that negative stereotype.
So it's like a background anxiety running all the time.
Exactly. It's a cognitive load. It drains mental energy that should be going into the work itself. And that pervasive historical absence acts like a constant environmental cue, triggering this threat, potentially hurting performance over time.
And it limits your imagination for yourself, too.
Absolutely. It severely restricts what psychologists call our possible selves. These are the mental blueprints we have for who we could become, our ambitions, our fears about the future.
So if you never see a woman who looked like you or had your background successfully leading a lab or a country, then the mental roadmap for you doing that is missing, or it feels incredibly difficult, maybe even unrealistic. That invisible historical figure makes the present-day goal seem less achievable, harder to truly believe in for yourself.
You also mentioned something about cultural repair for marginalized groups when these figures are recovered. How does finding, say, an 18th century spy help someone today?
It's about restoring a narrative of competence that was stolen. When history denies agency, political skill to women, entrepreneurial ability to certain groups, the descendants inherit this story of deficit, of limitation.
Right.
Finding the proof, finding a Susan Hyde running spy networks, finding a Madam C.J. Walker building a business empire, it gives back that agency.
Yeah.
It shows the capability was always there. The limits were external, structural.
So it corrects the historical lie.
Precisely. And correcting that trauma, that historical narrative of inadequacy, is deeply restorative. It rebuilds identity, and these individual psychological effects then ripple outwards, affecting society. You mentioned institutional gatekeeping again.
Yeah, that's where the sociological feedback loop kicks in hard. Those gatekeepers in patent offices, military promotions, university hiring committees, historically, they channeled recognition, resources, opportunities overwhelmingly towards men.
Creating a cycle.
A self-reinforcing one. If only men get recognized and promoted, then the next generation of historians, funders, bosses will look primarily to men as the models for leadership and innovation. It ensures women's contributions stay invisible generation after generation, a vicious circle.
Which then shapes how history even gets taught, right? Textbooks have limited space.
Exactly. They need to condense the past into usable stories. And historically, those usable stories favored the dominant national narrative, the male soldier, the male politician, the male inventor.
And if a woman's story didn't quite fit, maybe she was a rebel or worked informally or challenged norms,
she often got left out for the sake of a cleaner, more masculine story that validated the status quo. And that omission actively shapes the worldview of every kid reading that textbook.
So we've got the history, the psychology, the sociology. What are the concrete real-world results today of women having lower historical visibility?
You see it clearly in resources. Our research points to a correlation. Lower historical visibility often links to lower resource allocation now.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning fields that lack visible historical female pioneers often struggle more with gender gaps in research grants, in promotions to senior roles, in leadership positions today.
It's not just a coincidence.
Unlikely. If the people making decisions, reviewers, funders, hiring panels were trained on a history that largely excluded women, their unconscious biases can easily favor male candidates or traditionally male ways of working. That past absence directly fuels present-day funding gaps and slower career progress for women.
Which brings us to the act of recovery itself. It's not just about naming things after people.
Right. Naming a scholarship is good, it's symbolic. But historians rightly caution that unless this recovery work actually leads to structural change.
Like reforming patent laws, changing how grant money is distributed, rewriting curricula.
Exactly. Unless it leads to those tangible changes, it risks staying purely symbolic. Just adding a few names isn't the same as redistributing power or opportunity. We need more than plaques. We need leverage for real reform.
Okay, let's make this concrete. Enough abstract reasons for erasure. Let's talk about specific women, powerful examples that prove they were there, innovating, changing the world, often against huge odds.
Absolutely. These stories are crucial for correcting that default image of the male inventor and for understanding today's STEM disparities.
Where should we start? How about a material that literally saves lives?
Perfect. Let's talk about Stephanie Kolek. She was the DuPont chemist who, back in the 1960s, invented the synthetic fiber that became Kevlar.
Kevlar. Bulletproof vests, helmets, blast protection, high-strength cables. The impact is enormous.
Yeah.
Public safety, military, industrial.
Huge impact. And her story is a classic example of innovation almost being missed because it didn't fit expectations.
How so?
She was working with polymers, and the liquid crystal solution she created, the precursor to the super strong fibers, it looked weird. Cloudy, thin, opaque, not the clear, thick stuff they expected in polymer chemistry then.
So her bosses were skeptical.
Very. They almost threw the sample away. They thought it was a failed experiment just because it looked different.
Wow.
It took Kolek really insisting, being rigorous, pushing for testing, to prove that this weird stuff was actually 5 times stronger than steel by weight. Her story is vital pushback against the idea that women weren't doing fundamental material science.
Okay, another critical area, batteries, especially for medicine.
Right. That brings us to Dr. Esther Takeuchi. Her work on high-power density batteries, specifically the lithium-silver vanadium oxide type, completely changed implantable medical devices.
Pacemakers, defibrillators, things people rely on to live.
Exactly. Before her innovations, those devices needed surgery much more often for battery replacement. It was risky, costly. Takeuchi's batteries dramatically increased the lifespan and reliability. A direct impact on countless lives.
Again, challenging that narrative of who does critical engineering.
Completely. Figures like Takeuchi demolished the idea that women were absent from historical intervention. The absence was in the telling, not the doing.
But innovation isn't just labs and chemicals, right? It's also about business, systems, applying ideas in ways deemed maybe less technical.
Absolutely, and that's where someone like Madam C.J. Walker comes in, late 19th, early 20th century. She didn't just invent hair care products, she innovated business practice and economic systems.
For Black women specifically.
Yes, she saw a massive market completely ignored by mainstream companies. She developed products and built this incredible national network of sales agents, the Walker agents.
So she created jobs, economic independence?
Thousands of jobs. She trained women, gave them economic mobility on a scale that was unheard of. She became a self-made millionaire, a business magnate. Her innovation was in organization, market creation, empowerment, just as vital as scientific discovery.
And then there's Lillian Gilbreth. Her story really highlights how contributions get dismissed if they touch the domestic sphere.
Gilbreth is fascinating, an absolute pioneer in industrial and organizational psychology and engineering. She co-invented motion studies, ergonomic design things that revolutionized factory efficiency.
Making workplaces safer and more productive.
Yes, but here's the thing. She was also raising a large family, so she applied those same rigorous scientific principles to the home.
Like what?
She's credited with things like the standard kitchen layout, the work triangle, designing shelves inside refrigerator doors, the foot pedal trash can, all based on efficiency and ergonomics.
But because it was the kitchen.
Her engineering insights there were often dismissed as just helpful household tips. It fragmented her legacy, trivialized really significant contributions to industrial and everyday design simply because the application was domestic.
So what's the direct line from figures like Gilbreth and Kolek to today? Why is highlighting them so relevant now?
It connects directly to current efforts to boost diversity in STEM fields and tackle funding inequalities.
How?
By showcasing these historical women inventors, we're confronting the legacy of exclusion that still affects patent grants and venture capital funding today. Studies continue to show bias favoring male applicants in those areas.
So acknowledging the past is step one.
It's the necessary first step. Recognizing women were foundational innovators all along helps dismantle the justifications, conscious or unconscious, for the modern systems that still undervalue and underfund women's contributions right now.
Okay, let's shift gears into a realm filled with intrigue. Clandestine work, spies, agents. This is where history often gets tangled up with myth and legend.
It really does, and it's why we need to anchor ourselves in the archives, look past the popular spy tropes, and appreciate the strategic complexity and sheer courage involved.
Declassification must be key here.
Absolutely. The very nature of their work demanded invisibility, which makes recovering their stories harder, but so important for getting the history right.
Let's start with someone the Nazis themselves gave a nickname: the Limping Lady, Virginia Hall.
An incredible figure. An American who worked first with the British SOE, Special Operations Executive, then the American OSS in occupied France during World War II.
And her work wasn't minor stuff.
Not at all. She set up huge resistance networks, ran communications, trained thousands of local French fighters in sabotage techniques, managed airdrops of weapons and supplies, a major coordinator.
And the limping part.
That's what makes it even more extraordinary. She'd lost her lower leg in a hunting accident years before. She operated for years, deep undercover, under constant threat, using a heavy, conspicuous wooden prosthetic leg she nicknamed Cuthbert.
Wow. So it wasn't just about endurance, it was strategic leadership despite that challenge.
Absolutely. She wasn't just a courier, she was a field commander, directing large-scale resistance. Her strategic input was vital to the Allies.
But her story was obscured for a long time.
For decades. Partly classification, sure, but partly her achievements were just so significant, so complex. They didn't neatly fit the simpler heroic narratives popular right after the war. It's only really with declassified files and dedicated recent research that the full scope of her intelligence and operational command is being recognized.
Okay, another SOE agent, Noor Inayat Khan. Her story seems to add another layer about identity and heroism.
Yes, Noor Inayat Khan's story is compelling and complex. She was a British agent, worked as a wireless operator in Paris, a critical, dangerous job.
And she was eventually caught.
Yes, captured, brutally interrogated by the Gestapo, and ultimately executed at Dachau. Her bravery under torture was immense. She revealed nothing.
What makes her profile unique, as you said?
Her background. She was of Indian Muslim heritage, a descendant of Tipu Sultan, the famous ruler of Mysore, and she was also a Sufi, inclined towards pacifism before the war.
So her identity complicates those simple national narratives of wartime heroes.
Exactly. Her incredible courage defies easy categorization within standard British wartime stories, which were often implicitly monocultural. It forces us to broaden our understanding of who contributes, who sacrifices, who constitutes a national hero.
Now, speaking of spies, we have to address Mata Hari. Probably the most famous female spy, but maybe for the wrong reasons.
Mata Hari is the classic cautionary tale for historians in this area. It's all about sensationalism versus reality.
The legend is the seductive dancer, the double agent betraying secrets.
That's the legend, hugely famous. But the archival reality, historians digging into the actual evidence find it's thin. Very thin.
Thin in what way?
The proof that she was actually engaged in significant espionage during World War I is fragmentary at best. And any intelligence she might have passed on seems to have been pretty low grade, not strategically vital.
So if the evidence was weak, Why did she become this huge symbol? Why the execution?
She became a convenient scapegoat. World War I was brutal, unprecedented casualties, defeats. The public and military were reeling, looking for answers, for someone to blame for failures and leaks.
And she was an easy target.
Perfectly positioned, highly visible, lived an unconventional, sexually liberated life for the time, associated with powerful men from different countries. She embodied anxieties about moral decay, foreign influence, female treachery.
So her trial and execution served a political purpose.
Critically so. It reassured a panicked French public that the authorities were cracking down on treason, even if the evidence against her specifically was shaky. Her story is a stark warning about choosing popular myths over careful archival work, especially when those myths play into sexist tropes about dangerous women.
Okay, as we pull all this together, we really need to tackle a couple of common assumptions that still get in the way of understanding women's history accurately.
Absolutely. These myths persist and muddy the waters.
Myth number 1. The simple idea that, well, there just weren't any women doing X, whatever X is. Fighting, inventing, ruling.
Right. The assumption of absence. And as we've seen with figures like Susan Hyde in politics or Stephanie Kolek in science,
The reality is much more nuanced than just presence versus absence.
exactly. Women were often doing those things, but they were doing them under different names, perhaps a husband's or father's, or in unofficial roles like nurses on a battlefield who weren't formally enlisted, or providing the crucial labor behind a family business that only carried the man's name on the sign.
So the work was happening.
The work was there. The legal recognition, the name in the official record, that was often missing.
Okay, myth number 2. The lone genius narrative. That idea that big achievements come from one singular person, usually male.
This one is everywhere, isn't it? Famous figure X acted alone. But the truth, especially in science, tech, even arts,
It's usually collaborative.
often deeply collaborative. Many famous breakthroughs relied on essential teams, networks, assistants whose contributions were ignored. And particularly women's practical knowledge may be related to early computing tasks or sanitation improvements or household chemistry.
That gets dismissed as just domestic skill.
Right. Not seen as technical or scientific, even if it was crucial to the final invention. This allows the single male figurehead to absorb all the credit, obscuring the collective, often female, effort behind it.
Okay, let's widen the lens now. We mostly talked about Western contexts. How does this work of remembering and recovery play out differently around the world, given different kinds of archives, different histories?
It varies hugely. The methods have to adapt. In Western Europe, North America, you see more formal institutional efforts, big museum shows, detailed Library of Congress guides, university presses using digitized archives to find lost names. It's very archive dependent.
But what about places where the archives themselves were tools of colonial power, designed to erase local history?
A completely different challenge. In South Asia, for example, local scholars are doing vital work reclaiming regional women leaders, rebels, thinkers. But the official colonial archives are often deliberately incomplete or hostile.
So they need other sources.
Definitely. Recovery there often relies heavily on oral history. Family stories passed down generations alongside, trying to read between the lines of those fragmented colonial records, like police reports or land documents that might accidentally mention a woman's activity.
And elsewhere, Middle East, Africa.
Similar complexities. You might have strong memories of powerful pre-colonial women rulers, queens, regents, military leaders preserved in folklore or oral traditions,
But not in the official written histories.
often omitted entirely from the formal post-colonial national histories. Why? Because modern nationalist projects might selectively use or ignore these figures depending on current political goals.
So a powerful queen might be celebrated one decade and ignored the next.
Exactly. Depending on whether her story fits the current narrative the state wants to promote. It shows how remembering is always shaped by present needs.
This complexity really highlights the ethical tightrope historians walk when they bring these stories back into the public eye. It's not just celebration.
No, we have to be really careful. There are significant risks.
Like what?
First, tokenism. Just creating a list of 10 women you should know, doesn't fix the underlying inequalities in hiring or funding or education that caused the erasure in the first place. If we don't push for systemic change, it's just symbolic window dressing.
Okay, what else?
Second, the danger of political appropriation. Especially with powerful historical figures, their recovered stories can easily be hijacked by modern political groups, twisted to fit contemporary ideological agendas. Complex people get turned into simple mascots.
And a third risk.
And this is crucial. Historians have to resist hagiography. That's the temptation to sanitize the past, to present every recovered woman as a flawless saint.
But they were real people, living in complex times.
Exactly. Some might have been involved in violence, some might have benefited from or participated in colonial systems or slavery, depending on their era and location. Good history demands we show the full picture, the moral ambiguities, the context, not create plaster saints for modern feel-good consumption.
So looking ahead, what's the biggest challenge to make sure this recovery work is meaningful and ethical?
I think the core challenge remains. How do we make sure this recovery work translates into actual structural change? Change in funding priorities, in who gets represented in textbooks and boardrooms, in reforming biased laws or practices.
Moving beyond the symbolic add women and stir approach, as you put it.
Precisely. We need to use this recovered knowledge as leverage to dismantle the original gatekeeping systems.
And that involves tackling the archives themselves. Maybe ones that are still closed off.
Yes. We need to confront the ethical issues around accessing private archives, colonial records, corporate files that hold countless stories but remain hidden, and then there's technology.
How does tech play into the future of this?
Well, AI, machine learning, digitization, they offer amazing potential. Imagine algorithms that could scan vast text archives and pull out previously unnoticed women's names or contributions.
But there's a catch.
There's always a catch. If these powerful tools are trained primarily on the existing, already biased historical data that already underrepresents women,
They could just end up amplifying those same biases.
exactly, they might reproduce the very patterns of exclusion we're trying to fix. For instance, if optical character recognition struggles with handwriting styles more common among women in certain periods, it creates a new digital barrier. We need to be incredibly mindful of building tools that don't just replicate old filters. #tag outro.
Wow. This has been such a rich and I think really necessary deep dive. If we had to summarize the key takeaways, what would they be?
I'd say, 1, the erasure was systemic, built into laws, institutions, culture, not accidental.
2, the impact is profound and ongoing, affecting role models, psychology, resource allocation even today.
3, the work of recovery is vital, it's global, but it's ethically complex. We need accuracy and context, not just celebration.
It really feels like more than just historical detective work. You called it cultural therapy earlier. Restoring agency, restoring possibility.
Yes. And that leads perfectly into the final thought, the thing for you, the listener, to really mull over.
Okay, leave us with that provocative idea.
Recovering these forgotten women, the Susan Hydes, the Stephanie Kwoleks, the Zenobias, it's not just about correcting past injustice, though that's vital. It's not just about setting the record straight.
What else is it?
More profoundly, it's an act that fundamentally reshapes present possibility. By proving that the skill, the ambition, the leadership, the innovation was always there, even when hidden.
It changes what feels achievable now.
Exactly. It unlocks different futures. Futures where today's scientists, politicians, artists, entrepreneurs can draw strength, inspiration, and legitimacy from a history that is finally, painstakingly becoming whole. When we recover the full past, we literally rewrite the limits of the future.